Hello, I'm Miriam Grace Go, Rappler's Managing Editor. Welcome to Ask Your Comelec. For the 2025 national and local elections, as well as the Bangsamoro parliamentary polls, we are going to sit down with election officials to tackle hot issues, maybe ask the hard questions, and we will also explain new guidelines and maybe forgotten processes. Today, I'm with Comelec Chairman Erwin Garcia.
Magandang araw, Ma'am Gigi. At magandang araw sa mga televiewers natin.
We're going to talk today about whether we can avoid another Alice Guo. This comes from the issue that she was able to sit and serve as mayor because Comelec was saying the acceptance of certificates of candidacy is just a ministerial duty. You got flack for that, for saying that before. Tell us about it.
Yeah, that's right, Ma'am Gigi. You know, para lang sa proper perspective, and the Supreme Court said that indeed the duty of the Comelec is purely ministerial in the filing of the certificates of candidacy. We do not have the discretion to refuse, to analyze, to look at the person and ask him for some documents. Our role is merely to accept the certificate of candidacy. Nothing more, nothing less. And therefore, the discretion is not there. Now, on the issue as to whether there were other Alice Guo that perhaps were able to file their certificates of candidacies before, the answer is yes. If there are no individuals or voters who will be filing their opposition or a petition to disqualify and or cancel or deny due course the certificates of candidacy. So talaga pong mangyayari yung scenario na yan until and unless the law is amended. In which case, what do you mean by the law is amended? Then the law can prescribe for additional documents for whenever somebody is filing the certificates of candidacy, or a law which can provide that the Comelec should exercise discretion in the acceptance of the certificates of candidacy, in which case, before accepting, we can require the production of certain documents. Kung may ganun, Ma'am Gigi, wala kaming magagawa. We will just follow. But in the meantime, because the law provides that our duty is purely ministerial, then we cannot require the submission of any other document. And that's the reason why, tinanong po ako, what is the solution of Comelec if that is the case? Wala, because there is no law. There is no amendment to the law. So what the Comelec should do? I proposed before the Commission and Bank that instead of waiting for the law, perhaps what we can do is require or the Comelec can motu proprio publish the certificates of candidacies of all candidates nationwide.
Which you will be doing this time.
Yes, that's right, Ma'am Gigi. Yan po, first time the Comelec will be doing. We're going to publish in our website all the candidates' certificates of candidacy, from senators down to the last councilor. Of course, and this is a clarification. We are going to publish what is required by Section 74 of the Omnibus Election Code: the name, the age, citizenship, residency, registration as a voter, literacy. But we are going to remove certain informations which we honestly believe are not included in the Omnibus Election Code, such as, for example, the email address. That's not required, but we need that for purposes of notices. We will no longer include that for purposes of divulging to the public who are these candidates. And therefore, if there are 18,271 positions that will be apt for grab for the 2025 national and local elections, which includes the positions in the Bangsamoro Parliament, then if there are 500,000 candidates, we're going to make public the entire 500,000 certificates of candidacies.
In the case of Alice Guo, na fake pala yung citizenship, you initially said the Ombudsman and the DILG should initiate the proceedings, not the Comelec. So is it always the case that there has to be a case or a complaint filed before you can act on something?
You know, if you're going to ask first what are the cases that a person, such as her case, will be facing in the event that you will be filing your candidacy and you misrepresented yourself, meaning you lied in your certificate of candidacy. First, you can either face an administrative case for disqualification or cancellation of candidacy or denial of due course of candidacy. But according to the Supreme Court, there must be a registered voter that must be able to file a petition to disqualify or cancel the candidacy or deny due course certificates of candidacy. Si Alice Guo, nag-file siya ng kanyang application for registration April 2021. Yung April 2021, nobody objected. That's why her application for registration to be a registered voter in Bamban was approved by the Election Registration Board. Here comes now October of 2021. She filed the certificate of candidacy for mayor of Bamban Tarlac. Nobody questioned, nobody objected, and the Supreme Court said that the Comelec cannot motu proprio question the qualification of a person or the eligibility of a person simply because there must be a registered voter. The only time that the Comelec can question the eligibility or perhaps initiate disqualification cases if the candidate is a nuisance candidate. Tanggulo. Ang purpose lang, lituhin ng mga botante because of the similarity of names. In that particular instance, we can initiate motu proprio cancellation of candidacy. But aside from that, we can no longer do that. And that's why, in the case of Mayor Alice Go or those who are similar situated, there was nobody who filed an objection or opposition or a petition, nakatakbo siya. After manalo yung kandidato, wala nang jurisdiction ng Comelec. After the proclamation, the Comelec jurisdiction will vanish. And now the jurisdiction of other agencies will come in.
It's Ombudsman.
And that's why it's the Ombudsman, and of course the Solicitor General can file a petition for quo warranto to question the eligibility of that particular person. But here comes the second case, which is criminal in nature. What do you mean by criminal in nature? Well, when you will be lying in your certificate of candidacy, that is misrepresentation.
This is the case that Comelec filed against her.
Yes, that's misrepresentation because we honestly believe, our law department believed that there was misrepresentation on her part. She said that she's actually a citizen of the Philippines when the fingerprints will prove otherwise. We got 6 fingerprints, 2 fingerprints from the National Bureau of Investigation, and we have 4 fingerprints available to us. The fingerprint sa certificate of candidacy niya, sa fingerprint dun sa kanyang application for registration as a voter, yung fingerprint niya nung bumoto siya nung May 2022 national and local election, yung fingerprint niya dun sa October barangay and SK election, yung 6 na fingerprints, isa yung tao na may-ari ng fingerprints. So yun ang conclusion. And so our law department decided to recommend the filing of criminal complaint against her. So yan po. For the information of everyone, every month, meron po kami misrepresentation cases.
Tell us about those cases.
Yes po. Baka kasi akalain ng iba, we are singling out Mayor Alice Go. No. Alam niyo po, every month, katulad ng August, we filed 40 misrepresentation cases. And ngayon sa September, as of kahapon, 10. And so, dadami pa yan for the month of September. Because, remember, perhaps hindi nag-file ng candidacy, ng opposition, pero if we have evidence to prove na nagsinungaling, misrepresentation yan. Iba pa po yan, Ma'am Gigi, sa perjury. Yung perjury, alam niyo, you lie under oath, and then a case can be filed in the prosecutor's office. Pero yung sa amin, misrepresentation yan, punishable by 1 to 6 years imprisonment.
And disqualification later? And
well, the disqualification pertains only to the term by which the candidate had filed his candidacy, unless there was this conviction, or he or she is convicted of the crime involving moral turpitude, or a crime enumerated under the Omnibus Election Code, in which case that disqualification is a disqualification not only for this term, but in such other terms in the future.
How long do these cases of misrepresentation resolved?
Sa level ng komisyon, mabilis lang sa amin. Ang problem natin sa court, kasi may presentation of evidence. We have to understand that this is criminal in nature, and in criminal proceedings, the evidence of guilt is guilt beyond reasonable doubt. And therefore, all types of due process will be afforded the accused.
Will people like this be able to file for re-election while the cases are pending in court?
They will be able to file their certificates of candidacies, and we will accept the COCs. As to the question, will their names be included in the ballots? That I cannot answer at this time, because I will be preempting or prejudging whatever will happen. But the point is, based on the principle that I mentioned earlier, that we merely accept the certificates of candidacy. We have no discretion. It's purely ministerial. Yung mga katulad niya or similarly situated individuals, we will just accept the certificates of candidacy. Wala po kaming discretion.
You're talking about amending the law to introduce, to allow COMELEC to require more documents and all. What kinds of additional requirements do you have in mind?
Halimbawa po, Ma'am Gigi, birth certificate. Madami ng information doon sa birth certificate. In fact, pwede mo na malaman kaagad sa birth certificate ano ang citizenship ng tao, because in our country, we adopt the so-called jus sanguinis principle, blood relationship. In other countries, in other jurisdictions, they adopt what we call as jus soli, yung place of birth. Dito sa kabansa natin, blood relationship. But there was one case, Social Justice Society versus the Dangerous Drugs Board and the COMELEC, whereby the COMELEC at that time required the submission of certification that that person is not a drug addict or not a drug user. It was elevated to the Supreme Court, that same issue, and the Supreme Court said it's unconstitutional. You cannot add qualification to what is not required in the Constitution or in existing laws. And number two, the COMELEC usurp legislative prerogative in enactment of the law. The COMELEC cannot do that because under Article 9C of the Constitution, the power of the COMELEC is merely to enforce and administer election laws.
Okay. If there are concerned citizens who spot potential candidates who are misrepresenting themselves, saan sila magpa-file ng complaint? What should they do?
Lahat ng mga gusto mag-question, mag-oppose, mag-file a petition to deny due course or cancel candidacy or disqualification. Number one, dapat registered voter ka muna. Not everybody can file the opposition or petition. Dapat registered voter. At yun, you will have to prove in the petition that you are really a registered voter. Number two, you have to file that before the commission election. Of course, may filing fee, 10,100. But to a certain extent, hindi naman ganun katagal.
May deadline ba when they can do this?
Within 5 days from the date of the filing of the candidacy, but not more than 25 days from the date of the filing of the candidacy. And therefore, once na pinublish namin yung certificates of candidacy in less than 2 weeks, habol pa yon. Doon sa 25 days before the deadline for the filing of the petition or opposition to the candidacy of a candidate.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Garcia. Thank you for watching Ask Your Comelec. You can follow our election coverage on rappler.com/Philippines/elections. And we also invite you to join the voter hotline channel on Rappler Communities app. Every day, the Comelec staff will be there to answer your questions and to receive citizen reports. See you again.